Hi, I'm Adam Graves. Welcome to the Supernatural Life podcast. I'm joined with Christina Mayfield and Claudia Wisige, and we're talking about the leadership journey and keys and tools to help us lead effectively. Okay, well, guys, welcome back again. Here we are.
That's good.
So, what's happening? What have you got for us, Claudia?
Oh my God, lots of pressure's on me, but I'm excited though. I feel like we've had 3 just outstanding episodes. We've covered a huge amount of ground. And being the kid in the room, I'm just gonna see if we can ask some questions and hopefully unpack some of the stuff that we've gone over, if that's all right. Yeah. So I guess we'll start here, which is I know we've covered a lot of this stuff, but how did you end up becoming RC director?
Oh, funny story. Yeah. I had been in training, deliverance ministry training. Adam, you led Restoration Centre and you founded it with Billy as well, who's a previous guest before. And I came on a little bit later than that and was trained in healing and deliverance. And then as things grew, as the ministry grew, as Fresh Fire grew, Adam was in a position where he said, okay, I need to step back from this now. Who's going to take this on? And Billy and I were leading it together, but there needed to be a point when one of us said, okay, so who's taking this by the reins then? And I gotta be honest, it wasn't a full-on yes. It wasn't the Lord said it's you. I just didn't say no.
Oh.
I just didn't say no. I said, and long story short, I find myself in the position where now I'm leading it.
I think you and Billy were meant to be together in that, though, weren't you? Because she had that very strong deliverance ministry focus, and you had the very strong deep level healing focus. And as a tag team, it was supposed to be, the dream team in that sense, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And for quite a while, Billy and I were kind of co-leading it, but one person, which ended up being me, took the main lead, as it were. Mm-hmm. And as we know from previous podcasts, then Billy took a break, different personal reasons, and is now coming back on board again. So the tag team
both didn't want it, and they were both like,
what did you say?
You both didn't want it, and you were both like,
was
no.
Billy just bolder than me with a no?
Billy was probably bolder than you in saying no. But I think that's actually a good sign of a leader in some ways, in which they're reluctant to lead. In that it's like, I don't really want to do this, because I think it can be a false humility, I think, in some cases. But I think for some people it's like, particularly in church land, we see people just want to lead all the time. They want position, or they want, and it's an ambitious thing. So when people say, I don't know if I want this, I don't know if I actually want to do this, for me, that's check number 1. That's a good thing, because 1, they're understanding this is a heavy responsibility. 2, they're understanding that this is I'm understanding that they're not driven by ambition, and 3, they're coming into this sober. And so it's good cost counting. And so when people say, I don't know, I'm going to need the word of the Lord, I'm like, good.
Yeah. I think as well, from my personal journey, I always found myself falling into different areas of church, leadership or serving. Some people have a very strong word from the Lord. This is what I want you to do. This is the purpose in your calling. Do this and nothing else. Whereas my journey has always been, I'm not quite sure where God wants me, but I know I want to be used by God, and I know I want to be part of things, and I want to see his kingdom come. And so even in my leadership journey, my experiences has always been, why don't you serve in this area for a bit? Why don't you lead in that area? Okay, you've done that. You've gained some experience. Let's shift over to this area of church now. Lead in this, serve in this, then lead in it. And so I think in church life, we're talking again like how church is structured, Sunday mornings and stuff. I've pretty much led all like the mini areas of ministry in church throughout the last maybe 10 years. And from it, I've gained all that experience of leadership and now find myself here. And this feels, there's something in the core of me that says, now, this is what I was born to do.
So good.
Yeah.
That's so good. I think, just personally, in my personal journey, I didn't even realize that this was a roadblock for me, but I have generally quite competent. I don't want to say that I'm not, but I didn't recognize how much ambition had gotten a hold of me, and I took personal ambition and then applied it to the things of the kingdom. And it's been 5-6 years where that's, even in business, just a real stripping back of personal ambition to actually, wait, hang on, do I want this for myself, or am I trying to climb some kind of a ladder, which we see a lot of in church, where you've got very competent, very skilled individuals, and because they're competent and skilled in the world, and they feel therefore there's this deserving of in this place. So I don't, you've been leading for so many years. Can you just kind of speak into that in terms of that leadership journey, which is separating your own personal ambition, or working with people to strip personal ambition to, you're called to do this, whereas you're just wanting to climb up a ladder that doesn't actually exist, because this is the kingdom of God. There's only one person on the top of the throne.
It's such an interesting area, and as somebody who I personally feel called to raise leaders, and so I'm looking for people who do have a little bit of an ambitious streak, because you something that's driving them, something that's propelling them, and more often than not, there's always different motivators, and some motivators you can work with. Sometimes some people, it's an identity thing. Like I don't feel necessarily like I'm fully actualized unless I'm leading something, unless I'm doing something. And you could think, well, for some people that might be a red flag, but for me it's like, no, I get that. I understand that until you're actually doing something that's meaningful, productive, and fruitful, you don't actually feel fulfilled, and therefore your ambition's driving you into a place that you're meant to be. And so there's some healthy ambition, right, that we all need. Otherwise, what's driving us? There's unhealthy ambition where that sense of, I don't feel like my identity is actualized. If that and that can express itself in ways in which my identity is found in power, and it's in influence, or it's in title, or it's in access to people, or whatever. That becomes something then which can look quite ugly, and it can be an ugly ambition where it's like, I want power for power's sake, or I want power, or I want to be in that room because that's where perceived power is, and I want to be associated with that, and in that I find my validation for who I am. It's not so much about an actualization in as much as it's about a presentation to others of, I've made it, I've got the invitation to the table, I've got the title, I've got position. And so it's very subtle nuances between ambition motivators, and you've got to kind of like, what actually is driving you? Is that something I can work with? Is that something that I can't work with? And I think one of the things I've come to realize of late is that in all these things, God does have a way of using these imperfections and these places of inner conflict, to actually get you somewhere. So I think some of the best leaders who've built anything significant have been orphan-hearted.
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah, go ahead.
And
Right?
that's the root of what you're saying, is the kind of the unhealthy ambition.
Yeah,
The orphan
but
heartedness.
if they weren't orphan-hearted, they may not have actually done anything built anything. And so they build something to prove a point. Points proved. Hopefully they get healing and they actually come into a sense of rest and sonship and all those healthy postures that we want to have. But to get something off the ground, it needed them to be in a certain place of inner conflict and turmoil. We look through church history now, and we see church splits along the way. The Wesleys being kicked out of the Church of England, and they founded the Methodist movement. You wouldn't have the Methodist movement if you didn't have cantankerous John and Charles Wesley, who broke the system, didn't want to play by the rules, And so those kind of what we might see in moments as being kind of selfish ambition or character flaws, actually in the economy of God, he works all things together for good to get his plans and purposes accomplished. And so it's judging, and this is how I do it, is I look at risk and I look at, I can see somebody is incomplete in their maturity, or they're incomplete in their leadership practice, or they're incomplete in their emotional intelligence. And I can think, well, to what degree can I work with this person? How far can I journey with them before this becomes a problem? And so I'll make the assessment that if some people are just red flagging in lots of different areas, like, you want this for all the wrong reasons. If I give you the keys to this house, you're going to burn it down. It's like, yeah, no, let's not do that. So I think you need more time on the bench before I'm prepared to journey with you in that. Whereas others, they might have some things that are just screaming out, but it's like, actually, that kind of works. This lack of healing in that area is going to be a great motivator right now for you to press into something. And that's in the economy and the wisdom of God. And yeah, the
overarching God's bigger picture for not just one person's life, but how that affects everyone else as well. And from a healing deliverance practitioner type of point of view, we can be very quick to go, oh, I spot that needs healing. Oh, I can see that you need some deliverance in that area. And I think even in that sphere of ministry that I work in, there needs to be a check in our hearts at those moments as well, and say, okay, God, what are you doing in this situation? Because it's not always our place to point those things out necessarily. Wisdom is needed to know if someone is in a place where it's time for that healing to take place. Are they open to it? Are they ready for it? Is it the right time? Or do you just need to leave well enough because it's not invited? What would you say about, how do you judge that risk as well?
Well, you've got people in your team.
I got questions. I got things.
You've got people in your team who are who want to be there already, right?
Yeah.
They want to know everything already. And so they're working their socks off, driven out of a place of, I don't feel like I'm good enough, and I don't feel like I know enough. And what's it doing? It's forcing them into a commitment to education and forcing them into a commitment to growth. And so if they've still got that when they do know more, and they do know everything, and they can do everything, and they're still in that place, then that's unhealthy. But for now, let's work with that.
Yeah.
I get it. You don't know everything, so
I get it.
Let that motivate you to know more. And then when it gets to a point where we actually need to, come on, what's driving this now? Because you've grown, you've got maturity, you've got experience, you've got knowledge, you've got skills. Why are you still being driven by the same thing? That's where, now's the time to address this.
And also a leadership skill as well, to know when it's time to address
that's
things.
how God does it with us.
It is.
Because he's like, Adam's got this going on in his heart right now. It's such a big issue. But actually, that'll get him to here, which is where I need him to be. Then I'll deal with that. But we'll also have made some journey on this. And that's the layers of the way in which he brings healing to us, right?
We can apply that to all of us, can't we?
Yeah.
Come on. Thank God he doesn't just wait. and this is what people do. I guess the opposite of that. People will disqualify themselves and say, oh, I'm not ready yet. And then they'll find another reason not to be ready again. And then the whole life's gone by and they've not done anything.
Can I ask about the converse, though, just on this thing where I got told I could do stuff, so I just went on the streets of Glasgow, and I'm like, I'm gonna lay hands on anything that moves. And you've talked about this in the podcast, which is you gotta go out, and the Great Commission does go out, where sometimes in the zeal of new life, they've just been born again, and honestly, I got free, so I'm gonna set everything free. Just how do you manage that zeal where experience and wisdom is giving you a patience and a wisdom to be like, so for example, don't minister to that person, but you've got baby over here who's like, what do you mean? I'm on team. I can do. How do you navigate that side of things when it comes to that, where their heart's in the right place, but there is this almost like a recklessness to how they're functioning? What does that look like in management, that in your teams?
I think that's rarer than people
Really?
who disqualify themselves and don't do anything and need lots of encouragement, in my experience. But again, as a leader, you need real sensitivity not to oppress or quash people's enthusiasm. I'd rather work with enthusiasm than trying to be dragging someone into something that I see in them, but they don't necessarily want it for themselves or see it themselves. And I think, again, we're coming back to the state of your heart. If you have a heart of a son, the heart of sonship, then in enthusiasm, there's a place still to learn, to see someone else knows more than me, or someone I can learn from, someone can coach me. The heart that says who can be a mentor, who can be a mother or a father figure, who can be a coach. And those are all kind of different roles and expressions that we can have from people for seasons or for life. And if they've got that, the enthusiasm can be coached. Without it, again, we're looking at an orphan heart, and it's a privilege to be in someone's life when they have that kind of attitude and character, to then sensibly point out perhaps where the blind spots are, or where the unconscious incompetence is, and steer them along the path. That's a real privilege. If someone gives you that ability to speak into their heart, that's an amazing place to be. And to experience that yourself as well and be corrected in that helps as well, if you're then going to do it for others, because it's easy to fall into judgment or judgment instead of encouragement. What do you think in those lines?
I agree with you in the sense that there are people who the experience is the other way around, where it's not so much that it's enthusiasm you're trying to steer, but more you're trying to get people motivated to do anything at all. That's certainly my experience. I think for me the challenges are around unteachable people who, in their enthusiasm, think their enthusiasm equals maturity.
Okay.
God's told me, and therefore, you can't tell me.
You can't go anywhere with that then, can you? They don't need you.
Yeah. And so in those instances, it's like, oh, deal me out then. Why are you telling me?
Yeah.
Are you telling me what you're doing? What's the point of this conversation? Go away. And so that's a thing. We see that quite often, where people are just wanting to do their own thing because they've heard God tell them to. Look, and I will always say, whatever God tells you to do it. Right, go do it. So, but there is mature believers will know there is a, if you're a part of a community, there is a sense of accountability, and there's a sense of, counsel of those people who are in authority over you, and I think people don't like those kind of words because it speaks of control, or it thinks like, who are they to tell me what God's told me I can do? Why, it's like, well, Jesus modeled that example himself when he comes to the Jordan to get baptized by John the Baptist, and John the Baptist is like going, "What are you doing? You don't have to get baptized by nobody. You're the Son of God." And Jesus is like, "No, I'm coming under authority. You're the authority at this time, and I'm coming under your authority. Even though I know who I am, even though I know what I'm called to do, even though I hear the voice of the Father for myself, I'm submitting to man and the authority of man whom God has instituted. And to rebel against an instituted authority actually is to rebel against God himself anyway." And so
I have plenty more to ask on this. Can I just ask you guys just to clarify something? Just to clarify what you mean by orphanhood and sonship in the Elisha Company, which is a community that Adam runs.
join the Elisha Company.
Yeah, I'm one of the elders on that. And Adam actually gave a very strong word in this season about sonship and orphanhood actually causing you to crash. And within our circles, we know what we mean. But what does that mean? What, how can someone be orphaned? They've got earthly parents. What do you mean when you say they've got an orphan spirit? What do you mean they've got a son? What does that mean?
An orphan is somebody who is fatherless, bottom line. And so fatherlessness, when we talk about it from a scriptural perspective or a biblical perspective, we are talking about someone who was refused to be shaped and molded by experience. And that could be experience of an elder, of somebody who's gone before them, who've got life experience to share. It could be a father, a mother, a teacher. It could be a leader in a sphere, and it can be life itself. That people are refusing to be shaped and molded by what is presented to them in the form of a parent, a teacher, a leader, an influencer, and it's like, it's me and my way, me and my thing. I'm going to prove to the world, and it's a motivator that's all about I'm doing my thing. Whereas the heart of a son is somebody who understands that we are the product of those who've gone before us, who've fought the good fight, who've won an inheritance for us. They've gained ground in things. They've got experience. Essentially, it's the difference between a teachable spirit and an unteachable spirit. It's like, I can see you've gone before me, so I'm going to posture my heart in such a way of humility, in a way of yieldedness, and allow you to speak into my life, to give me wisdom, to give me counsel, to give me insight, so that I'm better prepared for the world in which I face, and I don't have to do this on my own. I don't have to be by myself. The orphan is like, I'm going to be by myself. I'm going to do it by myself. I'm going to show the world I made it all by myself.
Yeah,
Frank
God,
Sinatra,
fight
did
for
it my way.
everything.
Yeah.
Fight for everything that I've got. I've earned everything that I've ever worked for. Nothing has ever been given to me. It's an independent heart. I don't need no one else, just me, myself, and I. That's the orphan heart. The heart of a son is just rooted in honor, rooted in recognition that not everything has to be fought for. Things are inherited, and us as sons of God, God our Father is our ultimate Father. And so back in revivals of old, when the Father's heart, the Father's blessing was poured out on the church back in the 90s, that was so restorative to the church then as a whole, because we found ourselves suddenly back in right relationship with our Father. And yeah, I might be all right with Jesus is my pal, talk to Jesus, I have a great relationship with Jesus, the Holy Spirit. Oh, I don't know, the Holy Spirit's a bit weird, but yeah, power of the Holy Spirit's awesome. What about the Father? Well, Jesus is the way to the Father. Jesus was never the final destination. He said, I am the way to the Father. You can't come to the Father except through me, but know my dad. And Jesus modeled this to us. He modeled the heart of a son to us when he didn't do anything unless the Father told him to or revealed it to him. There's times in the scriptures when he's removed himself from the crowds to go and spend time in a solitary place to what? To be talking, to become communion with his Father. And he says the Son and the Father are likewise. Jesus modeled it to us what it was like to be a son. He even told us to pray, Our Father, who art in heaven.
Yeah.
And so the heart of a son starts with the Father, our Father. And often at Restoration Centre, we find ourselves ministering into those father wounds. So our earthly fathers haven't represented what our Father is to us in the best way, causes a father wound, and then we end up seeing our Heavenly Father through that lens. To have that healing and wholeness and deliverance of that and have the heart of a son restored is essential then to apply that to the rest of our life, to people.
The
We find ourselves
implications on a societal level are huge, and you see the absence of the father in the home has a huge impact on the psyche of a son and a daughter, and the knock-on effect in a societal context is huge. And so we see that as core Christianity.
yeah.
Is your heart as a son who is loved by a heavenly Father is the key to a healthy life.
We are,
and therefore that informs how you express leadership.
I've got 3 questions. I think so would you say for people, do you feel like people who struggle to move over to the new covenant struggle with the Spirit because it's there isn't this emphasis on inheritance, and in Ephesians it's like he has, you are this finished type word. Do you find that this kind of mindset stops people from stepping to the full rest?
Yes.
Okay, great. You was gonna do that. I was trying to word it.
Well, the old covenant is all about well, when we talk about the old covenant, we're actually talking about the Mosaic covenant, which was given to Moses on Sinai, and the commandments and the laws that accompany the commandments. And it is an external written code. This is what not to do. All the things God does not want you to do. And so invariably with human beings, when you give them a load of things to do or not to do, they tick, 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 tick. How many did you get? How many did you get? I got more than you. I'm better than you. And that's what we do as human nature, right? And so what it does is it made everybody so conscious about, one, their own failings, but by virtue of comparison, their own successes, to a point in which it's like, I'm not as good as that guy, but I'm much better than those 3. So kind of like I'm ranking right now, 3rd out of 100. And therefore I'm like, I might make it, and it's that type of mentality. And so that was a problem with that kind of legal and transactional thing with God and relationship with God. It was in that people made it a performance thing, and what they all missed in the old covenant was that you break one, you break them all. And so if you failed once, you failed 613 times. That's how many laws there were. And so the great thing about the new covenant is Jesus comes along and he goes, that test, the 613, I got 613 out of 613. And guess what? I'm giving you my scorecard. You can have it. Just show it to the examiner. And it's like, and it's like, wait, what? Where do I get to boast? You don't. Boast in me. And that's the new covenant. That's the gospel.
You get
And
it.
so
You're liberated.
that's why people who haven't fully embraced the new covenant struggle with the concept of this gift of grace, this grace that he's given us, which is his score sheet. We call it righteousness. Here, have my righteousness, and I'll take your stuff, your rubbish score, which is 0 out of 613. I'll take that. You have mine, and but people do is I want something to boast about. I want to say how good I am. And it's like, you can't if you're holding this card. You can if you go back here, but you're in comparison to somebody else who's better or worse than you.
It's like the older and the younger son in the story of the prodigal son. The older son wants to boast and say, in comparison to him, why I've already got 100%, and why are you accepting him? He's the screw up. But also there's the heart that says, what am I about my gains? What about my achievements? And it's all filthy rags to the Lord in comparison to his righteousness, as he's saying. But also sometimes those who know how lost they are or what state of a mess they are, but find it difficult to accept that grace, that scorecard, because of the shame that they feel. Almost like the prodigal son who didn't quite make it back to the father's house, is still in the pig pen. And there can be a real barrier there to receiving love, righteousness, acceptance, forgiveness, because they're still looking to themselves, which is an orphan heart. I've got to sort myself out before I can go to the Father. I've got to at least wash off some of the pig poo, perhaps, and trying to make myself look presentable, and then I'll go. And I might start stepping into a heart of a son. The shame is a horrible thing for people to carry, but when God releases them from it, when you see healing happen and shame removed, people, that sonship heart goes so deep. God never lets you go. Even when I became a Christian, when I gave my life to the Lord when I was very young, I had an experience of his forgiveness and I felt release. That was the main kind of salvation experience that I had. And then I rebelled as a teenager, like many pastors' kids do. And then when I returned to the Lord, sorry, I've lost my thread there now. Where was I going with that one? Remind me.
Orphan-hearted.
Orphan.
Sonship, when it sinks deep, it really hits you. You're forgiven as a child and it was powerful, but
when I came back to the Lord, my main experience was a much deeper heart of sonship, because I knew there was no other way. He was the answer, and he was my father and my best friend and the one that never leaves me. And the shame just left completely at that moment of rededicating my life to the Lord. It was an overwhelming experience returning to him, being that prodigal.
So good. And I just wonder if you could speak into this leadership thing just a little bit more. Just how do you guys make sure that you're, because I mean there's actually coined a term, church hurt, that people have. That how do you lead in such a way where we don't want to quench people, but we want to encourage them? Like you say, you have a lot of difficulty calling them into this thing. So just in terms of your leadership journey, what does that look like to call people into who you see that they are, into this sonship type perspective?
I think we do have leadership programs and development programs and all those kind of things, but I think the first thing that is higher priority and perhaps unseen and not necessarily measurable to the untrained eye is creating a culture of freedom, where sin, guilt, shame do not govern the environment, which allows people to come into a place of safety to the point where they disarm.
What do you mean?
What do I mean disarm? Well, lower the defenses so that we actually get to see you for who you really are, not who you're masking, or the masks, the masquerade, the walls, the barriers, and all those things. And so when when people do come into certainly our environment with church hurt, they come guarded, they come with walls, they come with masks, and it's all I get it. It's there to you. It's a self-preservation thing, but you can't journey with people when they've got that there. And so in the wider context, you have to have this atmosphere of you get to be free to be who you are.
What does that mean when you say you get to be free to be who you are?
Well, if you've got church hurt, you don't have to hide it. Wear it. Let's see it. Let's let your ugly out.
Okay.
If your ugly is hiding behind a nice mask, take the mask off. Let's see the ugly, because we're not afraid of it. We can journey with you. We've had many people come into our context and over time feel that it's okay to take the mask off, and I'm just being true to who I am right now. I don't trust this, and right now I'm scared of this, and it's like, okay, we get that. Okay, well, that's the beginning of this journey. But the environment has to facilitate freedom, which we have a kind of a saying of, you feel free to make as much mess as you're prepared to clean up, which in other words is like, come in, it's your home, but take personal responsibility for it. So if you're going to come in, kick your shoes off, chuck your coat and your bag down on the floor, know this is your home, and take personal responsibility for making sure you keep it as such.
But also you're surrounded by people that make as much mess as you're willing to clear up, but we're also here to help you clear
We
it
will
up
help
too.
clear
We'll
it
help you.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not just left by yourself and then we're not standing around going, you missed a spot.
There's some places like that.
No, there's lots, and I have mentored for I was gonna say too long, but it seems to be my life now. Just how when people come in, for example, and I tend to find that when the Lord brings someone to you, he actually he allows you to see what he has on the inside of them. You see this, but there's an awful lot of distrust that can come up for them. Sometimes there's all sorts of different roadblocks we talked about in the last episode. I've brought some people to you specifically, and they're like, no, I don't want, she looks terrifying, and so forth. And there's all these different there's different roadblocks that people can experience. It might be church hurt, where this is a self-preservation thing. There's a demonic thing. Just could you talk to me when you say the word journey? What does that look like in that road of not just restoration, but into a place of leadership? Because we want you to be who God calls you to be.
I think it's underestimated that when people come with church hurt, their experience in the past is a negative, poor experience, but the healing that comes just from doing the same, but in a healthy environment, and people you've made a decision to a degree to trust or not, but there has to be a small level of degree of some kind of decision to trust to even go anywhere, to then be open and willing to experience the same thing, but from a positive experience, or to gain a positive experience, to trust the people you're surrounded with, congregation leaders are in a place of health and therefore your best interest, to say, this happened to me before. I'm going to go into the same scenario again, but I'm going to trust that the outcome will be different. What I mean by this is often in deep level healing and kind of some tools we use, like doing divine exchange, which is about renewing the mind, exchanging a lie that you've believed for a truth. That's a mental and a spiritual experience. I am choosing to let go of negative beliefs and choosing to take hold of the truth that Jesus tells me. That's a rhema word of God. It's not just something I'm making up. That's the rhema life-giving word of God, that is truth, that is given to me. But a negative experience is not healed by a positive word necessarily. A negative experience of it isn't always healed just by receiving truth. A negative experience is healed by experiencing a positive experience. So you exchange a negative experience for a positive one. You need the full package. God might tell me loads of truths and say, this is what I believe about you. This is who you are. But then you've actually got to take the whole of yourself and your healed self into new experiences. And that's what I think journey is. It's actually being open and willing in my gradually healed self to experience things again and have a new experience of it, which in itself is healing. But God puts us in families, God puts us in communities. He's not made us an island. We actually have to live and be amongst other people. And that's only, your healing is only ever tested when you're actually then doing life with people. And church is just one aspect of life. It's an important aspect of life, but it's just one aspect of life. So who are you actually journeying with that is actually helping you not just to renew your mind mentally, but also just in the everyday life as well? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's really good.
I think we underestimate the healing power of just positive experience.
I think as well, for me, when I'm thinking about raising leaders, I'm thinking about trust as being a key currency. You have to have trust, and I think a lot of people come into our contacts and they've, we talk about church hurt and all that stuff, and they know they're called to lead or they're called to do something, but they're coming with history, they're coming with baggage, and it's another context. I feel like God wants me to lead somehow. I feel like I'm meant to be here, but I've got all my experience tells me I should not trust this environment. And so a lack of trust is rooted in fear. We can always come back to fear. And we fear what we do not understand. More often than not, fear is rooted in what we don't understand or we've not fully seen. And so people, when it comes to, certainly with me, it's like, I don't know him. I don't know what his motives are. He reminds me of my last leader or whatever. And he looks mean, he looks aggressive, whatever. And so there's a responsibility on my part to chase fear away. And there's the way I approach it is if a lack of trust is rooted in the fear of what you do not understand, I'm going to find ways to help you understand me. And so I will disarm myself. I will lower all the walls and the barriers to show you my heart so that you can see authenticity, you can see honesty, you get transparency, and you can see me for who I am. And I'm going to consistently present those things to you. I'm going to consistently present my heart to you over time. And then it's your responsibility to make the judgment call of what is in his heart, what is in their heart. And when you no longer are fearing what you do not understand, because now you have understanding, I can see where he's coming from, or I can understand his motivation there, or I get that makes sense. Trust is built. And now, and here's the thing, when you when you've got someone's heart that's so open to be judged, laid bare, here's my heart, you judge it as you see fit. When you know someone's heart, then you kind of know, when you know their motivation, you know what the behavior is going to be as a result. And so trust grows when you've come into a full understanding and revelation of someone's heart. So I know how people will lead based on what I know about their heart. And so if their hearts in that area looks to me to be unhealthy, I'll know in that situation, if this situation was to present itself, this is probably how that person's going to behave. And so is that something that needs healing, or is that something that they're just going to work out and, time will be a healer? Or is this something that when a situation presents itself, they're going to have to figure it out because they'll be confronted with the issue? And so open hearts are really, really important in a journey towards leadership, because you are opening up your inner world. This is who I am. This is how I tick. Show me who you are and how you tick. And somewhere in there, we'll find that trust can build and can grow. And trust is the ultimate currency for leadership in the end. I can only lead you to the measure of percentage you trust me.
Yeah.
I mean, some people trust me 100%. They'll go off a cliff with me. Whereas some people are like going, yeah, I'll go with you down the beach. Right, are you going to come for the swim that's like a 3-mile swim that way in those big waves? No. Right? And so, but and then the art of leadership is then gauging, well, where are we in this trust scale? What can I do with you? So I have some people on my team who trust me 100%. Trust doesn't mean have full confidence in the sense of this person's going to get it right, or this. Let me put it like this. I've got 2 kids. I trust that my kids, I've given them both keys to let themselves in the house, right? And they both got to come home straight away. I trust both my kids to come home and let themselves in the house. And, if my son says, can I go to the park before I come home from school? And I say, yeah, sure. I trust 100% he's in the park, right? My daughter, if she says, can I go to the park after school? I trust 100% she might be in the park. Right? Because I know the way she thinks. I know her heart. I know the way she gets distracted. I know how she's easily led. And I know how spontaneous she is. And so I know 100% she might be in the park.
It might be.
But I trust, the trust is in the knowledge of her and what the outcomes of her behavior might look like. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think
So
so.
it's not necessarily that the person's making the right choices. That's a different thing we're talking about. But it's about, have I come to a place where I know you so completely that I can predict how you're going to behave and how you're going to respond? With people who are in really tight relationships or married couples, they might have an opinion on something. They might talk about politics, maybe a recent political issue. They've never had that conversation before. And you might ask, say, for example, you might ask my wife, what's Adam's view on this? And we may never have talked about it, but through knowing me, we've never talked about it. I don't know what he would say, but it will probably be this. That's where the level of trust is, because trust is a knowing. Lack of trust is it's fear of what I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really
This
good.
is
Back to fear again.
fear. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's why it's such a big thing for the Lord really free us from fear, to get us to a fearless place. And he does it through perfect love.
It's the difference between knowing his ways and his acts.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
I know there's a lot there, right?
Yes. We need to get you to come back. I felt this. If you wouldn't mind both speaking into this. Paul says that I know no man after the flesh. This is slightly off topic, but we'll just get Chrissy to come back. Thank you, Chrissy. From a perspective of leadership, how do you? I'm trying to say this kindly. Unruly people that God has instituted authority and so forth. How do you deal with it when it's the other side, where you've got dishonor, where people don't actually see the spiritual and they're judging you after the flesh, or that type of thing? What does that look like in your contexts, whether healing, deliverance, church, coaching? What does that look like?
Where there's dishonor.
Where they don't know you, they don't see you, and they feel that I know this and I don't need your influence. All of that. What does that look like?
It doesn't look like much of a journey. You can't. If Adam's saying trust is needed, but behind distrust is fear. You can't build anything with fear. You can't. There has to be a willingness and an openness to explore some alternatives. And if someone's choosing dishonor and have already made their mind up about a certain thing, I don't know if there's anywhere to journey there, unless each person is open to hear a different perspective. The hardest thing in leadership is when you're misunderstood by people, when they don't know your heart. And I think people throw around
That's where the consistency comes in, though. You've got to consistently keep your heart on show. And no matter how your heart is treated, you've got to hold it in the same shape, so that people, as they're testing your heart, they're testing, the pushing. But it's the consistency that gives the confidence that this is a sure thing. This is the real deal. It's like kids. It's like,
I'm not changing. This is me. And
this is who I am. This is how I do things. This is the way I work. The same thing I said yesterday is the same thing that's today. And it's consistency. And consistency is what we don't see too much of, which is why there's often a lack of trust.
I think a foundational question to ask when it comes to leadership and relationship with people is, do you give me permission to speak into your heart? Do you actually give me permission to speak into your life and give you direction or wisdom, advice, actually lead you? Is that permission even there? Or is there too much distrust or too much fear? Then, like I said, there's no journey to go. I don't think I've experienced that much in my experience.
That's a polite way of responding, is like, do you give me permission to speak into your life? It's kind of like, I do a similar thing, but I kind of look at it from, and I don't know if this sounds a bit arrogant or what, but I kind of think like, can you handle me, actually, if I'm going to speak into your life?
The apostolic phrase, the pastoral phrase.
It's like, I do, with certain people, I will consistently always show my heart. This is who I am. This is how I operate. This is the way I tick. This is my motivation. This is what I'm doing. I'll always try and be transparent. So if people ask me something, I'll always give them a longer answer, because I'm trying to bring a bigger context to show transparency on my reasoning on things. But sometimes with some people, they are so hurt, they are so fragile, that I realize, I know, and again, I'm trying not to sound too, arrogant or whatever. It's not arrogance, I don't think. But it's like, I know that what I have can really, really help you. And I know what I need to say to you is going to really, really challenge you, but it will be good and it will stretch you. But I don't know if you can handle that today. I don't think you could handle me. And I think I will just compound your issue currently in the relational equity that we have right now. I don't feel we've got that right. And therefore I will withhold who I am, and what my perspective is, or what my counsel might be is on a situation, until you're in a better place where the relational equity is there, the trust is there, and I can say the things I need to say.
Do you say no to people a lot? To
In what
test the relationship.
context?
Hey, Chrissy, I want to run this, and this, and this, and this, and this. And do you just say, no, just to, like, how do you judge where that trust is? Do you do things like in terms of raising leaders to test that trust? It's great whenever someone's saying yes to you all the time, but it's a bit different when they start saying no.
I think there's a responsibility there to have a yes and a no. Because what you say no to, you're going to say yes to something else. You say yes to that, you always say no to something else. There has to be a strong yes and a strong no. No's in trusting relationships often come with a no but, or a no not yet, or a no later it'll be but later it'll be a yes. If you're going to be journeying again, we're talking about journeying again with people, that it's a no right now. Let's look at it in a certain amount of time, or let's implement these foundational things first. Let's look at where you're at. Let's look at this in a grand scheme of a lifelong plan, perhaps, for some things. But yeah, there's got to be a no sometimes in order for there to be a really great yes. I don't think I ever find, I've never done the no, why not, just because I say so. Apart from with my kids.
Okay. Okay.
Have you?
I think so. I can't remember any stories off the top of my head, but I think when you are, certainly my role is in a senior leadership capacity, you're in a different position of knowledge and perception, vantage point. You see 360. You're juggling lots of different things. And so when someone's asking to do something or pioneer something or start something, and you're like, no. And they're like, why? Just no, because I said so. Often people don't understand that there is a bigger reason and there's a bigger context for that no, but right now that might not translate too much to you. And so we can't do it because there's all this going on right now. We're not ready for that. And I think that's often a thing. I have people pretty much at least once a fortnight come and say, I'm thinking of starting this. And I'm more often than not, if it's something that's they want to do themselves, they just want to be accountable, I'm like, yeah, go for it. Sounds great. If it's something like, can the church do this? And can we organize this? And I'm like, leave it with me. Or no. And it's usually because there's a heck of a lot else going on, and this right now, timing wise, doesn't fit. And so
okay. I think my final one, I'm going far back, is you guys talked about continually presenting the same, this is who I am. These are my intentions towards you. I want you to know me, in that equity of relationship. Leadership's hard. it's hard, and people hurt you oftentimes a lot more than they realize that they're actually doing. How do you guys look after yourselves to be able to present that consistency, because you're also representing the Lord, an aspect of the Lord to this person? Just how do you raise your leaders in such a way that, hey, like how to look after yourself? Are there conversations sometimes where you say to someone, listen, you need to have a sit for a bit because your head space and your heart space isn't healthy? What does that look like?
I think the hardest thing for me to navigate in that is always it's in the area of being misunderstood, because you are trying to keep your heart out there, and it's like, how did you get that from my heart?
Yeah.
Are you fake? What's, like, what did you
What
see
happened here?
that gave you that interpretation
Yeah.
of this? Because that's not who I am at all. And so that often I find quite painful. It's like, you've completely misunderstood me, completely. And I don't know, I'm almost offended at the fact that you didn't even try to figure this out correctly. You idiot.
My goodness.
I do get like that. That's just me and my flesh and being carnal, and but it's a big thing because for me, I recognize that need to be so open and to give your heart so fully to people is really key in leading them well. For it to be misinterpreted, and more often than not, it's someone's lens, it's someone's past experience, or it's I don't know, it's something that's just put a filter on that's give it a different nuance, and you're like, no, that's not me, you've misunderstood. And when they choose to not seek clarification or correction on that, and they choose to live with an idea that's not true, I feel that's irresponsible. And it's like, you're allowing this to affect a relational dynamic here that is now being paused because you've got this perspective or this whatever. And it's my responsibility on my part to do the same, right? With the person. So, but and I'm like, hang on a minute. Here's how I'm experiencing you. This is what I'm seeing. Have I got this right? That's my responsibility as well, right? So it's both, but it is a painful thing, and it's hard to navigate. And so the danger is, when I am misunderstood, is then to fall into the PR maneuver, which is, how do I now create the contrary narrative of who I really am to counteract that narrative that person has? And so now I'm going to put extra effort onto showing this facet of my whole heart.
Yeah.
And so when you overemphasize an area, say, so now I'm actually super generous, I'm super kind, I'm super whatever, and I'm pushing this, I'm ramming this down your throat until you actually get it. You've warped yourself then.
You've stepped into...
And you move into control, manipulation, and all that kind of stuff. So you have to get to a point where you just go, oh, you've misunderstood me. Okay, well, I need to continually show up and present and posture my heart correctly, and hopefully somewhere down the line you'll get this correct. But I'm not responsible for what you have misinterpreted due to something that's affecting your lens on that side. That's down to you. But I will continue to hopefully remedy that only through consistency, not through shifting myself into a manipulative, controlling behavior.
Which is actually just self-defense.
Exactly, which is defense.
And defense always ends up being ugly.
It's ugly.
And it's often hard.
And all of the above.
And often I find there needs to be sometimes a time of just a little bit of distance and retreat to just reevaluate where my heart is, where what part have I played in whatever has gone wrong? Where's my responsibility? Where's theirs? And to find the reaffirming word of the Lord over my life as well, so that I don't step into orphan-heartedness. I often in those times, like you say, the hard thing is being misunderstood. Okay, then who really am I? I often need a reminder of my identity. And as we talked about the orphan heart, it is our Father who defines us. It's not our own judgment and assessment of ourselves. We need him to tell us who we are, because we're made in his image. And so often I find myself, when you've been a little bit beaten about, kind of need a little, the self-care looks like, okay, what does a Father, who am I really? And turning to him, in him telling me who I am again, to kind of sorting out those wounds and those bruises that I might have experienced, in order to come back to a place where I can be consistent in showing up and showing my heart as well, what I really want to be towards someone, despite how they are towards me. I think the danger is, and this is what I still kind of struggle with, in all honesty, is in that distance, that it's not necessarily retreat, but how do you have that time to yourself for that self-care without causing a void where there's zero communication? Because where there's high communication in conflict, there's low anxiety. And if there's a void of communication, then that's an opportunity. That's again an entry point for the enemy to come in and sow more lies.
I've seen that happen so many
So many times.
So many times.
And then the twisting of opinions, arguments, mindsets, negativity, it invites the Leviathan in there as well. And then you have all of that to unwrap and come out from underneath of as well. So I wouldn't say I would say I'm still discovering that one. How and I think it comes back to boldness, confidence, the heart of the Father towards someone that can keep you consistent in high communication, at the same time as being able to have some time of withdrawal. I don't even think that's the right word, but you know what I mean? To then just be reaffirmed yourself and make sure your bruises are being
Truly, I
remedied.
mean, there's so many times in life, it knocks you so hard that you'll want to quit, or maybe I'm not so cut out for this. And the only thing that can affirm you is the first person that affirmed you in the first place. And if you've sent yourself and things go sideways, which happens, it happens, things go sideways, and it's like, what am I doing here? But this word of, wait, you called me, you sent me, and so many times he just begins to speak over, and it's like, actually, this is actually who I am. And I can't retreat because he's spoken this word over me. And I think that's a real key distinction, where sometimes people, it's like, oh, but I sent myself and I pushed and I'm building something, and then things go sideways, and it's like, there's nothing in this apart from my sweat, blood, and tears and things, which can be extremely difficult. I mean, I've got tons of examples, just that miscommunication things. Do you guys have examples where you've sat with someone and you've said X, right? And you ask them to say it back to you, and what they have heard and what you've said, and you're just like, but how are we speaking English? Like,
I know.
Loads of times. Loads of times.
Yeah. What did you just hear me say? That is not what I just said. Yeah. Something in the air gets just miscued and corrupted somehow. And then you have to actually stop talking at that moment.
It's happened that many times to me. I think the church is gaslighting me. What on earth?
Do you now implement that just as in conversation, where it's actually like a tool, where it's like, please tell me back, because we do this in medicine, which is like, please tell me back what have I just said to you?
I do more now. I think not consistently. I think a lot of stuff now. There's new tools now, isn't there, and things like that, where you can transcribe and record, and AI will generate the whole lot for you, which is a refreshing change from DI, demonic intelligence, redefining the conversation. But there are tools out there, and I think it's just getting into good leadership habits and practices. It feels tedious. It does feel tedious, because you're then having to think about, right, you tell me what you heard, and you're like, yeah, none of that is what I said. And then we have to do the whole thing again. And so it can be laborious, it can be tedious. The other methods that I have used is, I'll send an email. Here's what we discussed. Does this sound right to you? You know, and more often than not, yeah, that's right. That's cool. That's what we discussed. So it's just putting tools in place to counteract some of that stuff. And a lot of it is, there's a lot talked about, you know, and a lot discussed. And when you hit in on emotional stuff, often things then emotions send all kinds of language into different filter systems, and you're hearing tons of different things all at the same time. And so you're not hearing what's said, you're interpreting how you felt. And that's a completely different thing.
Yeah.
I can't remember what I said, you know.
You're
You're not hearing what's said, you're
interpreting what you felt.
Yeah.
That's good.
And so people go away, you said this. I'm like, no, I never did. Never said a word like that. But what they're saying is how they felt in that moment, and they've put language to it. And so it's complicated, it's tedious, and then it feels like, as I said, they're good tools, but it can feel like the relationship now is descended into this kind of professional exchange. And you lose something of the authenticity of just general interaction and trying to find rhythm with people. And so sometimes conversing with somebody, more often than not, the challenge is, how do they roll? How does their mind work? How does their, brain tick? We have some friends. We like to play Code Names. Is the card game. It's a lot of fun. But I have a friend, Brett, and Brett. His brain's on wrong.
He thinks differently.
You've got to if he's on my team, I'm like, we are done for, because he will connect three things through something abstract that triggered a thought in his thought that was a memory from childhood that nobody was involved with.
Which is the
and
key
they'll say,
to
that's
solve
the
the
clue
tool.
to solve this.
To solve the board game.
I haven't got a clue. And it's like Banana Man. It's like, how does Banana Man relate to these things on the board?
Yeah.
But in his head, it works. And so sometimes finding rhythm with people and finding out how they work and how they flow is part of the key that can get lost if you just reduce things down to a professional exchange. And you're constantly then having to read notes. But even then, lenses dictate to you what, you said to me in your text message.
Yeah.
And it's like, what?
It's a text message.
The text, you said this, your tone. I do not like your tone, send. And it's like,
it's a text message.
It's a text message, there's no tone in it. You put the tone in on your end, on the interpretation.
Those are the lenses that need removing. But if you don't know you have the lens, again, you're right, it's either a blind spot for yourself, or you've not given permission for someone to speak into your life and tell you that's the blind spot and that's the lens you're seeing the world through, seeing your relationships through. You can't remove them again, can you? And I think often when it comes to those kind of conversations, areas of conflict and confrontation, if you go in with a lens of I'm right, you're wrong, this whole conversation, is about me convincing you that you are the bad guy and I'm the good guy. That's the lens. Everything's going to get twisted no matter what you hear, or vice versa. There has to be the goal of connection, as Danny Silk would say. He gave us the language, didn't he, for honor-filled confrontation. There has to be the goal that we still want to be in relationship at the end of this conversation. And if that's not the goal, then you're on a losing streak already. Is there a point?
Yeah. I mean, just from someone who follows, I think one thing is great that is just something as basic as praying for your leaders.
Mm?
Because I think more miscommunication, misperception from my end is I find that these things start to creep in when you're not praying for them, and it's really hard to be upset with someone that you're mad at. It's really hard to pray for someone that you're mad at, because your prayer will be like, in Jesus' name, and move on. But if you genuinely pray for this person, you start to see the Father's heart towards them, and it can be and when you start to see the Father's heart for them, it's really hard for you to stay mad, and you come with a more open heart. And that's and I think sometimes it's not talked about enough, I think, just to be like, actually pray for your leaders. They're trying, they're doing their best. And it's not this instruction that you can just ignore. It actually helps when they're trying to show their heart, because they're juggling so many things and so forth. And sometimes it's just there's been miscommunication. Sometimes they've missed it. But in that practice of, hey, when you guys say, please pray for us, it helps our hearts as people following to be like, actually keeps my heart soft towards you, and vice versa. But sometimes when that's neglected, then it's all out war, and you see church splits. And
So your principle of praying for your leaders, as we all should, it kind of forces you into a position of asking the Lord, God, what's on your heart for that person? God, what's your heart for them? And in that, you have to lay aside offense, unforgiveness. We haven't even spoken about forgiveness, have we? And the power of forgiveness.
Don't do that one, because we need to save that.
Shall we save it for another time?
The podcast.
We'll need to come back.
We haven't even covered that. A heart that's one to be for somebody rather than one that's already made a judgment and is full of offense and leads to bitterness. It's massive. It's
a huge one, and it's layered. There's multiple layers to it, and it'd be a great conversation to have. So we should have that conversation.
Look at that. No, it's necessary. It's really necessary. And I think I'm just in my walk, the times where I'm like, I'm done. And then you go and it's like, okay, let me pray. And you start. And when you invite the Lord into this relation, all of a sudden the space for lenses to be built in. And, you know, when there's isolation, that's where the enemy he has a field day. One of the interpretations of that word, be sober, is like, don't allow your imagination to go crazy. So the Bible tells you to be sober, which is don't allow, that when you had an argument with someone, then you leave and you think of 1,000 different things you could have said. And by the end of your mind playing and going, you could crack that person in the face, and it started off over a cup of tea, and it's just your imagination's just gone crazy. But we need to come back to this thing of forgiveness and just practicing some biblical truths of, hey, you ought to pray for this person, because your heart will. It's easy.
Very good.
Good.
I think we need to get you back.
Yeah, well, I guess that concludes today. We'll wrap that up. So great insights into leadership and leadership challenges and the journey of leadership. Chrissy, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.
You're coming back.
Thanks for having me
again. Thanks, everyone. Good to see you.